Wanna be Ryan the Great, and today we are reacting to the NFL draft, guys. It was a good draft, some great talent in this draft, as we do know. So in this video, we are going to be looking at all the teams, and we're gonna be talking about their drafts, except for the Eagles. I did do two Eagles videos in the past, so if you guys did not go see that, make sure you guys go check that out. That's a little more in-depth about what I thought of the Eagles picks. So the way we're going to be doing this today is we're just going to be looking at, the top teams who had the best draft according to Mel Kiper Jr. We're going to be going down the list of those teams and what I thought of those teams and their picks, and we're gonna get right into it. But before we get right into it, guys, make sure you subscribe with the post notifications on. Go subscribe to my brother Leon the Great vlogs. Make sure you go subscribe to my second channel at Ryan the Cod Great, and make sure you guys go follow me on Twitter at Ryan the Great RTG. Make sure you guys go follow me on Twitch at Ryan the Great Podcast. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get right into the video. So starting off with the Seattle Seahawks, I thought they had a good draft. Now, there were some players that I thought they could have taken over than the guys they got. I thought there was some better talent, but it's okay. They still got some great picks. Devin Witherspoon was their first pick, to cornerback out of Illinois. They got him with the 5th overall pick. Now, adding him to a cornerback group with Tariq Woolen, I think that definitely is really solid. They do need another corner. I personally thought they were going to go with Jalen Carter, but going with Witherspoon is not that bad. I think that Gonzalez is a better corner, but getting Witherspoon, in my opinion, is not that bad. And then they were able to get Jackson Smith-Njigba at number 20 in the first round. He was the wide receiver out of Ohio State. He was my best rated wide receiver coming into the draft, and to get him at number 20 overall definitely is a steal, helping, what's his face? Geno Smith gets some more pass catchers, adding him with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Definitely a great addition, and I think he's going to be great for the Seattle Seahawks. Also, a good slot receiver as well to help with Metcalf, because he doesn't really play in the slot that much, actually at all. So definitely something good to add there. Derek Hall, the outside linebacker out of Auburn. Listen, I understand that they wanted to add a pass rusher. He does have 16 sacks over the past 2 seasons. But I definitely think that there were better pass rushers out there. They really weren't looking for a pure linebacker. They're looking for more of a pass rusher. I definitely think in the second round there were better pass rushers to get. You could have went D-end here. But I think still a solid pick for the Seahawks there. And then with their 4th pick in the second round, they went with Zach Charbonnet, I think that's how you say his name, the running back out of UCLA. Oh, yes, that's a rhyme. I said it on my stream the other day. That's a good rhyme. But either way, oh my God, another rhyme. I'm so good. After losing Rashad Penny to the Philadelphia Eagles in free agency, I definitely think this is a good way to add another running back to your running back room. I understand that Kenneth Walker is going to be that first-string running back who had a great rookie season. I thought could have been Offensive Rookie of the Year, but Garrett Wilson obviously was my number 1. But adding him to a running back room with Kenneth Walker to be that backup, I definitely think was a great addition there. So Seattle Seahawks overall, a very good draft. I think that they probably were, I'll say, the second best team with the Eagles. I kind of agree with Kiper here. But moving on, next to the Arizona Cardinals. With their first pick, they took Paris Johnson Jr., the offensive tackle out of Ohio State. I thought that this was a solid pick. Listen, in my opinion, I like Broderick Jones a little better, but Paris Johnson, definitely not a bad pick at all. And I think trading back and definitely getting some value for next year definitely does help with them. And then, taking Paris Johnson right now so you don't have to worry about offensive tackle next year. They're kind of preparing for next year's draft as well, because Kyler Murray's probably not going to be in at pretty much at all this year, and the Cardinals are not going to have a good year, so they could worry about needs for the offense next year for when Kyler Murray does come back, so they don't have to worry about offensive tackle right now. And Paris Johnson, I'm saying this like Paris Johnson's not a good tackle at all. He is a great tackle, in my opinion. I just like Broderick Jones a little better. Next, in the second round, they took BJ Ojulari, the outside linebacker from LSU. Listen, I thought this was a good pick. They definitely need linebacker to pair next to Kazir White. I know that, a lot of defensive coordinators like to go with defensive players in their drafts, when they first get there. So, Ojulari, that's a solid pick. I think that he was a pressure factor on passing downs. He great in coverage. I don't know too much about him rushing the passer, but he is a edge rusher, so that's pretty good. The Cardinals do need something like that after losing J.J. Watt, so I think that was good there. Next, Garrett Williams, the corner out of Syracuse. They're another team that need corner. It was a need coming into the draft. I really don't know actually too many of their corners. But I mean that's all right. He's coming back from that ACL injury, so that could be a problem. But I think that it's fine getting him in the third round. Definitely, not spending too much value on him. I think it's okay. Next is Michael Wilson, the wide receiver out of Stanford. He had a good combine, which I think is all right, but I don't see him as the greatest receiver in the world. So, not really much to say there, but yeah, it's a okay pick. So the Arizona Cardinals, overall, a pretty good draft. They pretty much filled all of their needs. Also, if you guys haven't picked up the memo, I'm just looking at the first four guys, because the guys other than that, probably are not going to make much of a difference. But overall, a pretty good draft here. There are really not too many sexy picks, if that's what you want to call it. But they did fill their needs, which is really good. So I think an overall solid draft for the Cardinals. Next is the New York Giants. Listen, with not too many picks, I think that they had a pretty good draft, and not picking too early as well. Their first pick in the 24th spot in the first round, they took Deontay Banks, the corner out of Maryland. I definitely think that this was, a good pick. They obviously needed a corner. One of the better underrated corners, in my opinion. I definitely think there were a little better corners out there, but that is okay. But I'm more looking here at the third round, but we'll get into that in a second here. Next is John Michael Schmitz, the center out of Minnesota. Listen, they needed a center. I understand that center was not the greatest talent position in this draft, but they really do need a center. He is going to start, obviously, in his rookie year, and he really fills a huge hole, and he fills up some big shoes. Not big shoes, but he fills it he's got a big role already, because he needs to protect Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley badly. And then I really like the trade up for Jalen Hyatt. And they stole him. I think Hyatt was one of my top rated wide receivers in this draft, and he fell way too far. So for the Giants to get him was a very, very good thing, to make sure he does not go, and able to pick him up because he's really fast. He can catch. I think he has to do a little better route running. When I look at the film on him, I think he has to be a little bit of a better route runner. But he's fast. He can catch, and that's one of the things the Giants do need. Next, running back Eric Gray out of Oklahoma. They already do have Saquon, so this pick really does not matter to me. Just somebody to put in the running backs room with Saquon, so it really doesn't matter. Next, the Baltimore Ravens surprisingly actually had a good draft. Finally, they took a receiver. Their first pick with the 22nd in the first round, they took Zay Flowers, the wide receiver out of Boston College. Listen, Zay Flowers was highly rated coming in. I'm not the biggest fan of him, but it gives Lamar Jackson another weapon, so it's all right, and someone to pair with Odell Beckham Jr. in the slot. So it'll work out. I think he can he's fast, he can break tackles. I think this is a great addition. But next, Trenton Simpson, the inside linebacker out of Clemson. I thought this was pretty good. I thought he fell a lot farther than he should have. So I think he is a steal. But I think that he's pretty good in coverage. He's very good at covering tight ends, which is something that the Ravens do need. And Patrick Queen, who really only had one good year, 1 year wonder as a rookie. So I definitely think that this was a good pick by the Ravens there. Next is Tavius Robinson, the defensive end out of Ole Miss. Solid pick. They do need some pass rushing help. You really don't know too many pass rushers. Some impact pass rushers, I guess you could say. So this is a solid pick there. Next is Quay Blue Kelly, if that's how you say his name, the cornerback out of Stanford. Listen, their defense and their corners last year weren't the greatest in the world, so to add some depth there I think is good. So overall, solid draft for the Ravens. Moving on, the Chicago Bears. With their first pick, they took Darnell Wright, the offensive tackle out of Tennessee. They really need someone, a guy who's going to protect Justin Fields' blind side. So they definitely, not his blind side. His where he's facing. I'm stupid. But I think that Wright is the best rated offensive tackle in the class. He is massive, a 333-pound brother. He is just he is something special. He was very underrated in my opinion coming into the draft. But able to get him and to get some protection for Justin Fields, and you really didn't have to focus that much on wide receiver because you were able to add DJ Moore by trading the number 1 pick. Next, Jervon Dexter Sr. Listen, the Bears were one of the worst teams rushing the passer last year, and just to add anything, in my opinion, was good. Next was Tyreek Stevenson, the cornerback out of Miami. Another team that's not that good in coverage. When I watched them against the Eagles, A.J. Brown burned them badly. Well, he did burn them badly, actually. So did Devontae Smith. So, in my opinion, they need anybody. And then Zach Pickens, the defensive tackle out of South Carolina. That's another one that I think Pickens probably could have went a little later. They could have, I think he was, like, a little too early to go, but it's all right. They still got someone who can rush the passer, so it's all right. Next is the Cincinnati Bengals. And with their first pick in the first round, at number 28, they took Myles Murphy, the defensive end out of Clemson. I thought this was a steal for Myles Murphy. I thought he fell way too far down. I just think there was too many teams that didn't really need a defensive end, and if they did, they were pretty much all like taken. So getting Myles Murphy, definitely amazing. He was somebody that I wanted at the Eagles for the number 10 spot. That's how much I value Myles Murphy. And putting him right next to Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard is amazing because those are the only two like defensive end pass rushers that they have. So to add some depth there, I think is really good. Next, DJ Turner. I think he is a steal. I had him being taken in the first round, and he fell all the way to 60, the cornerback out of Michigan. Definitely a great pickup by the Cincinnati Bengals. And a team that needs some more secondary help because they need to defend. Got, the receivers on the Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills, and even some in their own division. Now with the Ravens adding more depth to their receiver room. Next, in the third round, they took Jordan Battle, the safety out of Alabama. Once again, another steal, in my opinion. He's versatile. He played in Nick Saban's defense, so you know he's going to be really good. And then they took, with their fourth round pick, Charlie Jones, the wide receiver out of Purdue. Really not too much to say about him. He's a solid pickup, and something they could add for depth, so not really much to say there. Next, the Cleveland Browns, with their pick, they really didn't have anything to work with here, so they took, their first pick was in the third round, so they took Cedric Tillman, the wide receiver out of Tennessee. Listen, in my opinion, I would have taken Jalen Hyatt, but Cedric Tillman, was injured with I believe it was an ankle injury, some foot or ankle injury. I don't really remember. But I am a little concerned about him because he did only have one 1,000-yard season. In the other seasons, he was not too involved in the Tennessee offense. Then this year with an ankle injury, only having 400 yards receiving. And then the year before that, having 1,000 yards receiving. You're just going to have to pray that he stays healthy and shows signs of that 1,000-yard season. So I am a little concerned, but somebody that could help Deshaun Watson because he really needs it. Next, with their third round again, they took Siaka Ika. I think that's how you say his name. The defensive tackle out of Baylor. Listen, I thought that this was pretty good here. I felt that Ika fell a little too far in the draft, but he's not the best pass rusher in the world, but he's a good run stopper and something that I think the Browns could use. Very good pickup there. Next, in the fourth round, they took Dwan Jones, the offensive tackle out of Ohio State. This brother he is big, bro. I mean, when you look, I can't imagine what he looks like in person, but he could be the starter at right tackle out of Ohio State. Once again, I think he fell a little bit past than what he should have, but it's all right. Next is Isaiah McGuire, the defensive end out of Missouri. Not really much to say here. They need some pass rush help, especially with losing Clowney and Myles Garrett really being the only person there. So I think that's good depth there. Next, moving on to the Green Bay Packers. I wasn't a big fan of their draft. Kuiper gave him a B+ rating. I really wasn't a fan of their draft too much. But they took Lucas Van Ness with the 13th overall pick. I really think that they could have went with really anybody else. I wasn't the biggest fan of Van Ness. I will say, I think Miles Murphy would have been a little bit better, in my opinion. I really just think it was really of a waste of a pick. I really I just don't like it. I don't know. And then with the second round, the 42nd pick, they went with Luke Musgrave, the tight end out of Oregon State. I don't like this pick either. Darnell Washington was available. Why did you take Darnell Washington? Why did Washington fall all the way to the 4th round? Can we talk about that? What is going on? I don't know what he did wrong or if he has an injury problem. I have no clue, but I don't know why Darnell Washington fell that far. They took Musgrave out of Oregon State. I really just don't understand it. I like Washington a lot better. I understand that Musgrave was rated above Washington, but Washington, I feel like, has more experience in a better offense at Georgia and is a 2-time national champion. I really don't see it. And then the one pick I did think was really good was Jaden Reed, the wide receiver out of Michigan State. I definitely think that they got him right where he should have been taken. At the 50th overall pick, so that's solid right there. Next, Tucker Kraft, the tight end out of South Dakota State, taking a D2 tight end over a D1 national champion is just insane to me. I just don't understand why they didn't take Darnell Washington. Overall, they didn't have an awful draft, but I just didn't like their picks. Next, the New England Patriots. With their first pick, they took Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback out of Oregon. A great pick. A+ pick. A steal. Christian Gonzalez was my top-rated corner coming into this draft. I love Christian Gonzalez. I thought that he was going to go to I think it was the Raiders or the Falcons I had it going. And, just a beautiful, beautiful pick by Bill Belichick. A+ pick. I love Gonzalez. Next was Keion White, the defensive end out of Georgia Tech. Another steal, in my opinion. I don't think he should have fell that far. I think that he's really good on the edge. He could also play in the defensive line as well, so you can switch him there. And adding him with Matthew Judon, because Judon's an edge rusher, and Keion White can play in both positions, so having to watch out to where they're both going to rush through, I think is a great weapon there. Next is Marte Mapu, the inside linebacker out of Sacramento State. He's a solid player, but I don't think he's going to do that much in this defense in at least his first year. And then Jake Andrews, the center out of Troy. I'm not too familiar. I'm not going to lie. Center was not a position that I really looked into. But I guess if they can add some depth, is always all right. Next, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I thought they had a great draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers. With the 14th pick in the first round, they took Broderick Jones, the offensive tackle out of Georgia. I thought that this was a great pick. I love Broderick Jones, one of my favorite players coming into this draft. I think that he can be a great way for Kenny Pickett to develop and not having to run every 10 seconds, not even. The first 2 seconds he has to get out of the pocket because he's already pressured. So adding Broderick Jones, I think is great. Joey Porter Jr. I thought was a steal. I had him being taken by the Washington Commanders, and then he fell all the way down to number 32. So definitely a steal for them. And is always a Penn Stater, so I love it there. And then Keon Benton, the defensive tackle out of Wisconsin. I thought that he could play a significant role, or I think he could play a significant role because, you add him with Cameron Hayward, someone that can rush the passer pretty well. I think I think he's great. And if he keeps developing his pass rushing moves, then he'll be a great player. And then Darnell Washington, the biggest steal in the draft, in my opinion, fell to 93. I don't know why he was not taken. He is going to be paired right next to Farrah Booth. I think that's how you say his name. And that is going to be amazing. 2 tight ends that can block and that can catch. Chef's kiss to me. Next, the Tennessee Titans, after having one of the worst drafts last year, trading A.J. Brown, they finally have a little bit of a better one. Their first pick, the 11th pick in the first round, they take Peter Skoronski, the offensive tackle out of Northwestern, who I think that could be moved more of a guard. but I think this was a great pickup for them. Skoronski was my top-rated offensive lineman in the entire draft class. I really liked what he can do. I think if he go, and even if he could play both positions, tackle and guard, so whatever you need him to do, he's going to do it. And then Will Levis, the quarterback out of Kentucky. I don't know how he didn't fall out of the first round. I had him going number 4 overall, and then he goes to number 33, which is just insane to me. But someone that can compete with Ryan Tannehill at the starting spot. It is a little concerning to me that they have 3 quarterbacks that are not the greatest quarterbacks, in my opinion, competing for the starting spot, and they have a team that can go to the playoffs. It does a little seem concerning to me. And then they take Tyjae Spears, the running back out of Tulane. I really hope they're not preparing for Derrick Henry's departure. But, I mean, it's a solid pickup, so I can't really say much. He's talented, and as long as he stays healthy, I think it'll be okay. Next is Jalen Duncan, the offensive tackle out of Maryland. I think he could be a starter, but just not yet. So, get him in training camp, help him out. I think it'll be okay. Next, the Buffalo Bills. I love that they stole Dalton Kincaid from the Dallas Cowboys with their 25th overall pick, the tight end out of Utah. I love that they stole him. Dalton Knox, who, my opinion, had to be, like a little better this year. I thought he was going to be a very key piece, and now Dalton Kincaid coming in. I know Josh Allen's got to be thrilled because he's got 2 good tight ends. Kincaid can block, and he can catch. He's a really good pass catcher. I think he's the second best tight end. I like Michael Mayer a little better, but they definitely need a playmaker like Kincaid. I thought this was great here. Next is Osiris Torrance, the guard out of Florida. I think it's an okay pick. They definitely need some offensive line help if they're going to guard a guy like Chris Jones. But, it's a solid pick. I felt like they could have done a little better there, but I don't know. Next, Dorian Williams, the inside linebacker out of Tulane. He's fast. This man is quick. 4.49, 40-yard dash at the combine. He is fast. I'm sure he's going to be great rushing the passer. I really like that pick there. Next is Justin Shorter, the wide receiver out of Florida. Not too familiar with him, but they do need some guys to, take more of the load off Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. So I definitely think that adding a receiver here helps. I love Buffalo's wide receiving core with their tight end, so I think this is good here. Next, the Carolina Panthers. Listen, if they didn't draft Bryce Young with the number 1 pick, then they would have had the worst draft in the NFL. I'm just going to say that how it is. Bryce Young, who I think is the best quarterback in this draft, number 1 overall pick. Obviously, we know everything about Bryce Young. I don't even need to talk about that. Next, Jonathan Mingo, the wide receiver out of Ole Miss. I thought there were a little bit better receivers than Jonathan Mingo in this draft. I liked Reed a little better, but still a solid pickup in my opinion. DJ Johnson, the outside linebacker out of Oregon. I definitely think that he could have gone way farther down. They could have got him in like the 4th or 5th round, in my opinion, maybe even the 6th round. That's how much I really don't value him that much. But next they got Chandler Zalava, the guard out of NC State. I definitely think that they got a steal here. I really do like Zalava, and I think that he's going to do a good job protecting Bryce Young. Next, the Dallas Cowboys. They took Mozzie Smith, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. I don't know about this pick. I mean, he's a good run stopper, and they're going to need that with the Eagles now getting DeAndre Swift. So they definitely need something like that. The Cowboys' run defense, they didn't really stand out. So adding Smith here was definitely good. Next, Luke Schoonmaker, the tight end out of Michigan. I did not like this pick at all. Darnell Washington was available. Kraft was available. My man Brenton Strange from Penn State was available. I do not like this pick whatsoever. Schoonmaker was a good tight end, but the Michigan offense was not that good. With McCarthy as quarterback, Schoonmaker didn't get that much chance to succeed. I really don't know what the Cowboys saw in him, but I'm not complaining. They're the Cowboys. Next, with the 90th pick, Darmon Overshown, the inside linebacker out of Texas. He's a good blitzer in my opinion. He puts a lot of pressure on the quarterback. I'm not too familiar in my I'm just not too familiar with him. But I mean, if he's a solid pick, then he's a solid pick. I'm not too familiar, but I don't know. If he rushes the passer and does his job, it'd be fine. Next was Vilma Fejo? I have no clue. The DN out of San Diego State. I mean, he's a really good pass rusher. And so they got some good pass rushers in this draft. I do like what the Cowboys did because they definitely need somebody to rush Jalen Hurts with, the Eagles, in my opinion, the best offensive line in the NFL. So adding some pass rushers in this draft, I think, was good for the Cowboys. But the first two picks, the Schoonmaker I thought was a bad pick. Smith, I feel like they could have got somebody better, but they're the Cowboys, so I'm not complaining. Next, the Denver Broncos. They really didn't have much to work with here. They only had 5 picks. So with their first pick, they went with Marvin Mims Jr., the wide receiver out of Oklahoma. I definitely think this is he's a good fit. Adding him with Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, I definitely think that is good. He, a very good deep threat, which is something that the Broncos struggled with this year. So that definitely a good pick for them. Next, Drew Sanders, the inside linebacker out of Arkansas. He's a good player. I don't know how much he's gonna contribute because third round pick, they really don't have much. Riley Moss, same thing. They're good players, just they're not gonna be impact players. And then L.J. Skinner, the safety out of Boise State. I don't think it was just good value. He could have went a little earlier for day 3. Next, the Detroit Lions. Their first pick, I know the Lions. I did not like their picks at all. Except for Brian Branch. That's the only pick I did like. Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back out of Alabama. Number 12 spot. You take Jahmyr Gibbs. I made a weird face when I saw that they took Gibbs. Even Gibbs was surprised. He was way too high. Gibbs was shocked, the fact that he got taken. I don't see Gibbs as that big of an impact player. And then you trade DeAndre Swift. You didn't get Bijan. Gibbs could have fell to the number 18th spot, and you could have got somebody a lot better of a talent at any position. I hate this. I don't hate it because I think he's a good player. He's a good pass catcher and can run. He's hard to take down. He can get in the end zone. But he could have been taken a lot later. And the same thing with Jack Campbell. You could have You could have taken him at anywhere else. He could have fell to the second round. There were so many better players at inside linebacker than Jack Campbell. I really don't see it. I thought that they should have taken someone who rushed the passer because they only got 2 guys to rush the passer. It makes no sense to me. Next, Sam Laporta, the tight end out of Iowa. Darnell Washington was on the board. What are we doing here? Come on, man. Brian Branch, I really like as a good pick. He can hit. He's sometimes a little shaky in coverage, but he can play corner, which I think is good for the Lions. And now they're adding to a secondary that is already amazing. But other than that, I really don't see it. Also, I'll just give a little honorable mention. Hendon Hooker, not a bad pick, but he went way too late in my opinion. The Houston Texans, I thought that they had a better draft than what people are saying. C.J. Stroud, the quarterback out of Ohio State, a gunslinger. I definitely think that if they would have got Bryce Young, it would have been a little bit better because their offensive line is not that amazing and they need someone to escape the pocket better. But C.J. Stroud, second best quarterback, in my opinion, in this draft. And I think somebody that is definitely someone that the Texans can build around for the future. Next, they traded up to get Will Anderson, the outside linebacker out of Alabama. Now, you guys know that I love Will Anderson. I thought he was the second best player in this whole draft. He can get to the quarterback in about a second. I love what the Texans did right in these first 2 picks. Next, they took Drew Struggs, the center out of Penn State. Now, obviously, I love Drew Struggs. It's my guy right there. But I am a fan of this pick. They do need some offensive line help, and getting him in the second round, I thought that was pretty good since, a center was not the best position, and able to get a good center, in the second round, I thought was pretty good. Next was Nathaniel Dell, the wide receiver out of Houston. Listen, I'm not too familiar. I'm not going to lie, but they do need some help after losing Brandon Cooks via trade. So I definitely think that was solid there. Next, we move on to the Indianapolis Colts. Getting Anthony Richardson, I thought was good because I thought they were going to have to fall and get whatchamacallit, Will Levis, but Anthony Richardson, he is one of the most athletic players in this draft. His stock was raised a lot from that combine. I really do like Anthony Richardson, and I think he is going to succeed. Next is Julius Brents, the cornerback out of Kansas State. They definitely need some defensive help. They're fine with their pass rushers. I think they have really good pass rushers, but they definitely need secondary help. And then adding Brents there, I thought was great because he needs to start as a rookie immediately. Next, Josh Downs, wide receiver out of North Carolina, I think was a steal. I'm a pretty big fan of Josh Downs. He can play in the slot, and he's somebody that's going to help Richardson a lot, actually, because the Colts really don't have any receivers other than Michael Pittman Jr., so I think there's a good pick there. Next, Blake Freeland, the offensive tackle out of BYU. I mean, he's a massive dog. He's a massive guy. So I definitely think that he'll help protect Richardson and not make him run every 2 seconds. Next, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Listen, I wasn't the biggest fan of their draft. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Their first pick with the 27th pick was Anton Harrison, the offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. He's somebody that's going to protect Lawrence, which is good because the Jaguars, I feel like offensive line was a hole that they needed to fill, which is fine. And after Cam Robinson got a suspension for performance enhancing drugs, that's a hole that they needed to fill, so that's good there. Bretton Strange, a tight end out of Penn State. We don't know what is going to happen to Evan Ingram, so I definitely think that this was a good pickup for them because if Evan Ingram leaves next year, then you have someone to develop for 1 year, and then you put him into that hole. Next was Tank Bigsby, the wide receiver out of Auburn. I definitely think they could have got somebody better. Well, not somebody better. They could have just taken another position here. They could have, gotten a wide receiver here. In my opinion, they really didn't. Obviously, with Travis Etienne, you really don't need someone like Bigsby. But I guess if you're scared of his injuries, then that's fine. Next was Ventrell Miller, the inside linebacker out of Florida. It's a solid pick in my opinion. I really don't see how he's going to help because the Jaguars' defense is already half decent. They really didn't need to fill inside linebacker. They could have went a little better with outside linebacker early. I know they did pick outside linebacker, but they could have went a little earlier with it, but that's all right. Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning defending Super Bowl champions, as much as I hate to say it. Their first pick was Felix Ozuma, the defensive end out of Kansas State. I thought he was somebody that could have fell to the second round, but he was the last pick in the first round. It is a feel-good story that he is a Kansas City Chiefs fan, but they add someone to the pass rush to help Chris Jones out because he was really the only good pass rusher for the Kansas City Chiefs last year, so I think that's good there. Next was Rashee Rice, the wide receiver out of SMU. He's a deep threat, which is really good with, Patrick Mahomes having one of the biggest arms in the NFL. Then losing Juju Smith-Schuster, I think that, will help him play more this year, so I think it's a solid pickup. Next, Wanya Morris, the offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. I definitely think that, with Lucas Niang being one of the weakest points on the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line, that he can compete for this spot. And the Kansas City Chiefs are losing a lot of their offensive linemen really fast. So that I think this was a good pickup there. Next, Chamari Connor, the safety out of Virginia Tech. Listen, after losing Tyrann Mathieu, their safety spot has kind of suffered. So taking somebody there, even if it is a 4th-round pick, I definitely think does help. Next, we move on to the Los Angeles Chargers. I was pretty surprised that Quentin Johnson did fall to the number 21 overall spot. But now with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams always getting injured, I definitely do like this pick. Next, I forgot that he was in the draft, and I really like this pick. Tua Tagovailoa, I have no clue how to say his name. The outside linebacker out of USC. This man is a beast. 13 and a half sacks last year, and if he just puts on muscle, he is going to be an all-pro. That's how much I like this guy. He is a beast. I really like this pick. Next is Dania Henley, the inside linebacker out of Washington State. I mean, he's good. He got a lot of. He was able to get a lot of tackles last year. He can cover tight ends. I think that he could start, honestly, as a rookie. Solid pick there. Next was Darius Davis, the wide receiver out of TCU, another TCU wide receiver. Honestly, I think that he's probably just going to play on special teams because he's pretty fast. But once again, with Williams and Allen always injured, then I think that this is a good pick to add some depth. Next, the Los Angeles Rams, who have just about no picks, but actually won't have any picks in like the early rounds, except for that second round pick. But their first pick was Steve Avalo, the guard out of TCU. Listen, they were one of the worst offensive line teams. When I looked at their offensive line last year, I don't know how it wasn't a top need entering the draft. When I saw that offensive line last year, it ruined their whole offense. They couldn't run the ball, and they couldn't even pass. It was bad. It looked really bad. Next was Byron Young, the outside linebacker out of Tennessee. With losing Bobby Wagner, they definitely need a linebacker now. I definitely think that they got him for some good value. So next was Kobe Turner, the defensive tackle out of Wake Forest. With the potential of losing Aaron Donald in a few years, you definitely need someone like Kobe Turner to be there just in case Aaron Donald does retire. So you kind of need him. So good pickup there. Next was Stetson Bennett, the quarterback out of Georgia. In case Matthew Stafford does get injured or if he leaves, then you have Stetson Bennett there, who is a proven winner. So I don't think it was a bad pick. Next is the Miami Dolphins. They only had 4 picks overall. They took Cam Smith with their second-round pick, the cornerback out of South Carolina. After trading for Jalen Ramsey, there's someone that they can pair next to. I think that was a good pick there. He is pretty good in zone coverage, and he is a lockdown, just like Jalen Ramsey. Next was Devin Ackney, the running back out of Texas A&M. Listen, with them not being the best running team last year, even though with Raheem Mostert and Wilson, they weren't the best running team. So I think that he could make an impact immediately. Next was Elijah Higgins, the wide receiver out of Stanford. In my opinion, not going to do much. The Dolphins already have a pretty good receiving corps with what they got. I don't think he's going to do much. And then Ryan Hayes, the offensive tackle out of Michigan. He'll be lucky to make the team. Next, the Minnesota Vikings with their first pick. They took Jordan Addison, the wide receiver out of USC. It takes a lot of pressure off of Justin Jefferson. They really did need a wide receiver coming into this draft. And someone to pair next to Justin Jefferson I think is great. Next was Mekhi Blackman, the corner out of USC. Listen, after losing pretty much all of their corners, they finally can get a corner to, lock down some of the receivers in this division, because now, DJ Moore's entering the division, and some others that are going to be a problem. Wait a minute, no, DJ Moore left the division. Am I losing my mind here? Am I losing my mind? I mean, St. Brown's still there for the Lions, and then no, DJ Moore is entering the division. I'm losing my mind. I don't know what I'm talking about. DJ Moore's entering the division, so I'm going to cover DJ Moore. I don't know St. Brown. Guys, so we've got a lot of guys on the rise here in this division for wide receivers, so definitely good there. Next, Jay Ward, safety out of LSU. Listen, same thing. Need somebody to cover, and I think that's going to be good there. Next is Jacqueline Roy, the defensive tackle out of LSU. Good nose tackle. I really don't see much it's not really screaming starter in my opinion, but it's okay. Next is the New York Jets. I was laughing so hard at this team. Will McDonald, the 4th, outside linebacker out of Iowa State. There were so many better outside linebackers and pass rushers, and you went with McDonald. Why did you even have going in the first round? Next, Joe Tippmann, the center out of Wisconsin. Nothing much there. I mean, they could have taken Michael Schmitz, who I thought was a lot better, but it's the Jets. Next is Carter Warren, the offensive tackle out of Pittsburgh. I mean, I really don't see him making much of an impact. He'll help protect Rodgers, so I guess it's okay. He could play. You never know. Next is Israel Abba Akonda, the running back out of Pittsburgh. I don't think he'll play that much with Breece Hall. So I think that he could be a solid pickup, but he'll just play behind Breece Hall. Next, the Buccaneers. Now listen, they needed defensive help bad and offensive line help. So they took Kaljah Cansey, the defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh. They really needed defensive line help with pretty much all their defensive line leaving. And Vita Vea, in my opinion, not having the best year. And they need a pass rusher, too. So they got that. Next, Cody Mouch, the offensive tackle out of North Dakota State. They need offensive line help with Tristan Wirfs and half the offensive line getting injured. Good pickup there. Next, Yaya Dibey, the outside linebacker out of Louisville. I think he could be a steal. He's once again a good pass rusher, something that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers need, so good pickup there. Next is Shervoisi Dennis, the inside linebacker out of Pittsburgh. Not too familiar, but once again, they need a pass rusher, so if he can help pass rush, he can help pass rush. Next, the Washington Commanders with the 16th pick. They took Emmanuel Forbes, the corner out of Mississippi State. I personally like Joey Porter Jr. a lot better, but not, at least getting a corner is fine, especially covering all these great receivers in their division. Next, Jartavius Martin, the safety out of Illinois. I thought there were better safeties available, like Jair Brown and Sidney Brown, but, it is what it is, I guess. And then next, Ricky Stromberg, the center out of Arkansas. Listen, especially with the Cowboys adding Mozzie Smith and the Eagles adding Jalen Carter, I definitely think that you're going to need some interior help to help defend these guys. So solid pick up here. And then next, the guard, Braden Daniels, the guard out of Utah. He's a little undersized, but if he can help defend the pass rush from the Eagles, then honest to God, so be it. Next, for the Falcons, they took Bijan Robinson with the 8th overall pick, the running back out of Texas. I don't understand why they picked him. They had Aguilar, who rushed for 1,000 yards last year. On my stream, I was saying they're going to take him. They went with the best overall player, so I'm not complaining. But the rest of their draft was nothing special. They took Matthew Bergen, the guard out of Syracuse. I think that, he really isn't just a tackle, but he's going to be a guard, so I just called him a guard. Zach Harrison, the defensive end out of Ohio State. I really don't see much in him. He only had, I think it was 3.5 sacks at Ohio State. I don't see much in him, and they need pass rushers, so I don't really know. Next, Clark Phillips, the corner out of Utah. I guess he'll be okay. They just traded for Jeff Okudah, so I really don't see much of how he's going to play. Next, the Las Vegas Raiders. With their first pick, they took Tyree Wilson. I thought that was a pretty good pick. And I think they had a better draft than what people do say. Tyree Wilson was the first pick. They were last or something around there in sacks last year, so that definitely does help. Someone to add with Max Crosby. Next, Michael Mayer, in my opinion, a big steal. I thought he should have went over Dalton Kincaid, the tight end out of Notre Dame. And after losing Darren Waller, someone that gives Jimmy Garoppolo to throw to, and he can block, I think he's one of the best pass-catching tight ends coming out of the draft. Probably the best pass-catching tight end coming out of the draft, so good pickup from the Raiders there. Next, in the 3rd round, Byron Young, the defensive tackle out of Alabama. Once again, they were not they're awful in sacks, so they need someone there. He's very well coached with Nick Saban, so very good there. Next, Trey Tucker, the wide receiver out of Cincinnati. Just another weapon for Jimmy Garoppolo to throw to, so anything that'll help. Next up, the New Orleans Saints. Their first pick was Brian Breezy, the defensive tackle out of Clemson. They pretty much cleared out their entire defensive tackle room, so bringing in Brian Breezy, who is a good run stopper, is something that they're going to need. They don't really need a run stopper in this division. I mean, they got Buccaneers with just about no running back. I mean, Miles Sanders is now in the division for the Panthers, so I guess that matters. And then, yeah, not really much there. Well, I guess now with Bijan there as well, you know. So I guess maybe they do need a run stopper. But next, Isaiah Foskey, the defensive end out of Notre Dame. I was hoping he was going to fall to the Eagles. I love Isaiah Foskey, but a great pass rusher, can play in coverage. I really like Isaiah Foskey, but I was really hoping he would fall to the Eagles. But next, they took Keandre Miller, the running back out of TCU. Listen, I think that Acne probably was a better pick. But they need somebody in case Alvin Kamara gets injured or suspended or whatever happens to him, because God knows what's going on with him. So someone to add to the running back room in case something happens to Kamara, I think was solid. Next was Nick Saldiveri, the guard out of Old Dominion. Someone to protect Derek Carr. They do need it. I'm not sure if he's going to play. I really don't see. I really don't see much of what he's going to do, but solid pickup if you need it. Next, the San Francisco 49ers really didn't have many picks in this draft in the early rounds. They went with Jair Brown with their third round pick, the safety out of Penn State. Listen, I love Jair Brown, great in coverage. I'm a big fan of that. He has a lot of potential as well. Next, Jake Moody, the kicker out of Michigan State, the first kicker taken. So good pickup there. Next, Cameron Latu, the tight end out of Alabama. I thought that they got some good value on him. I thought he should have went a little earlier. So good pickup there. To play behind George Kittle. Next, Darrell Luter, the corner. Darrell Luter Jr., the corner out of South Alabama. I'm not too familiar, but with picking Jair Brown, I don't think this really matters. And yeah, that's it. So long video of just analyzing the draft. But in my opinion, once again, I still think the Eagles had the best draft. I honestly think that, some people were hating too much on teams like the Falcons for just taking the best overall player and not filling their needs. I thought the Jets were not as good as people really did think. I also thought that, I think the Texans had a lot better of a draft than what people were saying as well. But that'll do it for this video, guys. Make sure you subscribe with your post notifications on. Go subscribe to my brother Ryan the Great vlogs. Make sure you go subscribe to my second channel at Ryan the Cod Great. Go follow me on Twitter at Ryan the Great RTG. And make sure you follow me on Twitch at Ryan the Great Podcast. And as always, Ryan the Great out. Peace.